They say children don't lie. What they don't say is. They also don't know how to explain pain. Not in words, not in full sentences, not in ways. Adults are comfortable hearing, so they draw. The room was painted soft yellow, probably to seem safe. There was a rug with smiling animals, a shelf of picture books, a box of crayons so carefully arranged by color that it made me uneasy. My daughter sat on the floor beside the therapist's chair, knees tucked under her dress, her curls falling over her cheek like she was trying to hide behind them. She was 6, and she hadn't been sleeping. The therapist smiled in that way people do when they've been trained to. "Why don't we start with drawing a picture of your family?" she said, offering my daughter the box. My daughter reached in slowly, too slowly, and pulled out one crayon, red. She held it in her fist like a knife, and she didn't let go. I waited in the hallway pretending to scroll through my phone, pretending not to notice that my heart wouldn't slow down. I didn't know what I was expecting. Not exactly. We were just here because she stopped looking people in the eye, because she flinched when a man in the grocery store asked if she liked gum, because she cried when I left the room for too long, because something inside me whispered that I was missing something. 27 minutes later, the therapist opened the door. She didn't smile this time. She didn't say, "You can come in now," like she had when we scheduled the intake. She stepped into the hall and shut the door behind her. Her hand was shaking. "Mrs. Halston," she said, voice low, "there's something in your daughter's drawing we need to talk about privately." I stood, and I knew. Before she said the word, before she showed me the drawing, before the police were called, I knew, because my daughter hadn't let go of that crayon the entire time, because she'd been holding it like something she was afraid would be taken away, because sometimes children don't scream when something's wrong, they just draw it. The drawing was done in crayon on standard white printer paper, not lined, not folded, clean, intentional. The therapist placed it on the desk between us like it was evidence. She didn't say anything for a moment, just waited. I looked down. At first I thought it was just a house, 2 stories, red roof, a tree on the right, a sun in the corner, a yellow dog. Classic child art. But then I saw the people. There were 4 figures. 3 standing, 1 small figure crouched, low knees pulled to chest. And in the center, a tall person, larger than the rest, drawn entirely in red. No face, just a dark oval where the head should be, and hands that were too big, drawn again and again in thick red loops. I swallowed. "What's that?" I asked. "She said it's someone in the family," the therapist replied. She didn't name him, just said, "That's the one who visits when I'm in my room alone." My skin prickled. The fluorescent lights overhead suddenly felt colder. She also said, the therapist added slowly, that the 2 people on the right, these 2, she pointed to the other adults in the drawing, always walk away when he comes. I stared. One of the walking figures had long brown hair, drawn carefully like mine. The other wore square shapes that resembled glasses. Her uncle, my brother, my husband's cousin, her teacher. I didn't know. I couldn't think. My throat closed. "She's 6, I said, my voice barely audible. "She's 6, and that's what she sees when she's told to draw her family." The therapist gave a small nod. "We're mandatory reporters, Mrs. Halston. I understand. I've already made the call. I understand." But I didn't. Not really, not yet. Not until I realized something else. The crayon she held the whole time, it wasn't broken, but the paper was smeared near the middle, as if her hand had been shaking while she drew the red loops. As if even now she wasn't sure she was allowed to say what she knew, so she drew it instead. My daughter hadn't told a story. She had given me a confession, and I was the one who hadn't seen it coming. Or worse, maybe I had, and just never dared to name it. That night, I sat in the dark with a cup of tea. I never drank. The police hadn't come yet. They were processing the report. I was told to keep things normal until they did. Normal. Like I knew what that meant anymore. I stared at the fridge door covered in magnets, drawings, grocery lists. And I saw them. The old pictures. Crayon doodles from months ago, messy, colorful. A pink sun, a purple cat, stick figures with triangle dresses. But one caught my eye. A figure in red larger than the rest. No face. I hadn't thought anything of it before. Just a kid's drawing, I'd said. She had drawn him before, and I'd laughed, pinned it up, proud that she was so creative. My daughter had been telling me for months, not with words, with shapes, with silence, with the way she clung to me when certain people were in the room. There were signs. I remembered the way she flinched when her uncle leaned in to hug her, how she once whispered in my ear, "I don't like the red room." I had thought it was just the guest bedroom. I had laughed it off. She's got such a big imagination. No, she had a memory, and I was the one who couldn't face it. There was that Thanksgiving when she refused to come out of the bathroom for over an hour. Everyone said she was just tired, cranky. I brought her juice, and she spilled it down her shirt while staring at the floor. And then she asked, "Mommy, if someone hugs you too hard, does it still count as nice?" I said, "Only if you want the hug." She nodded but never told me more. And I never asked, because asking meant knowing. And knowing meant choosing, to speak, to act, to ruin dinner tables, to be the woman in the family who makes everything uncomfortable. I wasn't ready, so I stayed quiet. And now she was the one paying for it. I walked to her room. She was asleep, curled into a knot, her stuffed rabbit crushed beneath her chin. I sat beside her and traced her hair back behind her ear. I whispered, "I'm sorry." She didn't stir, but her brow eased. The silence hadn't been hers. It had been mine, and I wouldn't wear it anymore. The therapist hadn't said a name. Neither had my daughter, but she didn't need to. I already knew, not all at once, not clearly, but like a photo developing in water, blurry outlines turning into edges, then into eyes I had seen before. I pulled out old photo albums that night. Birthdays, Thanksgiving, Easter. He was in all of them. My uncle, my mother's youngest brother, Mark. The cool one. The one who gave the best presents. The one who always stayed late to help clean up. The one who never married. The one who always insisted on spending time with the kids because grown-ups are boring. He was always around, even when he wasn't invited. My daughter used to call him Uncle Red, though I never understood why. Maybe it's his shirts, I had said once. He did wear a lot of red. Or maybe it was the way her drawings always painted him that color. Red outlines, red hands, red eyes. My daughter had never drawn him with a face. Only color, only shape. Maybe that was how she protected herself from seeing him too clearly. I flipped through every photo. There he was, holding her at age 2, spinning her around in the backyard at 4, helping her with her shoelaces the day of my sister's wedding. So close. Too close. And I remembered something else. She used to hide when he visited, slipped behind the couch, climbed into the linen closet, pretended to nap. We all thought it was cute. She's so shy. But maybe she wasn't hiding from strangers. Maybe she was hiding from someone we all told her to hug. The police called the next day. They asked if I had any idea who the figure in the drawing might be. I didn't hesitate. My daughter called him Uncle Red. A pause. Then the officer said, "We'll start there." And I hung up. The man with no face had a name, and now he had a file. It was raining the night she spoke. Not pouring, just a steady, quiet rain, the kind that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. We were curled on the couch under the blue blanket with frayed edges. She was in her pajamas, bunny socks, the ones she used to call hop-hop feet. I turned the TV down. She hadn't been watching anyway. She had been drawing in the margins of a magazine, quiet and focused. Small spiral stick figures, red loops. Always red. "Sweetheart," I said, "can I ask you something?" She didn't look up, but her hand stopped moving. I waited. Then a tiny nod. "Do you remember what you told Dr. Ellis about the man with no face?" Silence. Then a shrug. Her eyes didn't leave the page. I kept my voice soft. "I believe you." She looked up at that. Fast eyes wide, like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "I believe you," I said again, firmer this time, no matter what, okay? Her bottom lip trembled. She gripped the crayon tighter. And then, he said, "If I told, you go away." I swallowed hard. "Who told you that, baby?" She looked down, pressed her forehead into my chest, and whispered, "Uncle Red." I didn't cry. Not then, because I didn't want her to think her truth broke me. Instead, I held her, and I said, "Thank you." A few minutes passed. then out of nowhere. He comes at night sometimes, but not when you're home. My hands clenched around her, so gentle and yet full of fire. I kissed the top of her head, told her again she was safe, that he would never come again, that Mommy believed her, that she was brave, so brave. She fell asleep in my arms, and I stayed awake all night memorizing her words, not because I needed to be convinced, but because I would need them when the family started denying, when the world started doubting, when the courtroom started dissecting. I would need every word she said, every breath, every pause, to remind me why I was going to war. The first call came from my mother. I knew it would. Her voice trembled, but not with rage, with discomfort. "Are you sure, honey, about what she said? You know kids. They dream things. They mix things up." I didn't answer, so she pressed. "She's been so sensitive lately, and Mark's always been good with kids." That was the moment something inside me shifted, not broke, shifted. Like stone grinding against stone. I realized she didn't call to ask if we were okay. She called to manage the fallout. The second call came from my sister. She skipped the soft part. "You're going to ruin everything. Everything. He'll lose his job, his pension, his whole life." I asked, "Did you ever wonder how many lives he already ruined?" Silence, then a huff. "You've always been dramatic." And just like that, I saw it. The family script. The old phrases. The language used to bury women who made noise. Don't be dramatic. Don't ruin the family. Don't make it worse than it is. At dinner the next night, I confronted my father. His face was pale, his fork untouched. "She's 6, I said. "She knows what happened. She described it." He didn't deny it. He didn't defend Mark. He just whispered, "Do you really have to go public?" Public. As if I had launched a campaign, as if I wanted this, as if I had chosen this. No one asked what she needed. They asked what he would lose, what they would lose. I watched them one by one, measured their discomfort, clocked their cowardice. No one said she was lying. They just wanted me to pretend it never happened. They asked me to keep it quiet, to let the professionals handle it, to not involve the rest of the family, to think of the holidays. I said nothing. But in my head, I rewrote every single line. I am thinking of the holidays and how I will never, ever let my daughter sit at a table with monsters again. The silence in that house became unbearable. So I left, not with luggage, with proof, with purpose, with the quiet rage of a mother who has chosen her child over her bloodline. It started with a birthday party photo. A group shot from 2 years ago, 10 kids, all cousins or neighbors, sitting cross-legged on the grass. My daughter was off to the side, arms crossed, not smiling. Mark was in the middle. I hadn't noticed back then, but now I looked closer. 2 of the other girls were leaning away from him. One boy had his hands balled in his lap, looking down. It was subtle. Nothing you'd see if you weren't already watching for it. But I was watching now. I called the mother of one of those girls. Her daughter had just turned 8. We hadn't spoken in a while, not since the incident, as my family now called it, behind my back. I told her everything. She didn't gasp, she didn't deny. She just went quiet. And then she said, "She told me something last year. I didn't know what to do with it. The girl had said Mark was weird, that he played games that felt icky, that he told her not to tell or she'd ruin the fun." They had brushed it off. "She's dramatic," her mom had said at the time. "She watches too many cartoons." I called another cousin. His son had started wetting the bed again after a weekend sleepover. They thought it was a phase. Bought a nightlight. Read parenting blogs. They never looked at who tucked him in that night. Piece by piece it came together. Not evidence for court, but evidence for truth. So many small stories, so many off moments, so many almost confessions that got buried under adult discomfort. The pattern was clear. He had done this before. Maybe not every child, but more than one. And long enough for it to be deliberate. Long enough for him to think he could get away with it forever. He almost did. Because people don't want to believe the worst when the worst wears your last name. I started writing it all down. Dates, names, conversations. Everything the others told me but didn't want to say out loud. And I realized something chilling. I was the only one documenting. The only one willing to put her name next to the truth. everyone else, they wanted to forget. I didn't. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't storm into a room and accuse anyone. I filed the police report, attached the names of the other parents who had quietly told me their stories, printed photos, emails, voice memos. It was clinical precise and devastating. The detective thanked me for being brave. I wasn't brave. I was done. There's a difference. The news reached the family before I could warn them. Someone leaked it. Maybe the cousin I trusted too quickly, maybe my sister, maybe my own mother. But the backlash didn't come in the form of questions. It came in rage. My phone lit up with messages. I can't believe you'd accuse him of this. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've destroyed the family. Not once did anyone say, "What about the children?" An aunt cornered me outside the grocery store, said she was disappointed in me. Mark has always been good to this family. He's been through a lot. You really think he's capable of something like this? I looked her in the eye and replied, "I don't think I know." She slapped me, right there between the shopping carts and the donation bin. At the next family gathering, I wasn't invited. They called it needing space. I called it cleansing. They said I betrayed blood. They said I should have kept it within the family. They said I was making a scene. I said nothing. No press interviews, no Facebook posts, no blog entries. Just quiet, relentless action. Let them scream. Let them mourn their illusion. I was too busy protecting my daughter from becoming the next buried secret. Too busy burning the bridge they built on her silence. I wasn't loud, but they heard me anyway. Because when a woman stops begging to be believed and starts documenting filing moving, she becomes the storm. The interview room looked nothing like the ones on TV. No dark lighting, no two-way mirrors, just pale blue walls, a few soft toys, and a camera in the corner that blinked quietly, recording everything. She sat in a child-sized chair across from the forensic interviewer. I sat behind a one-way screen with two detectives and my lawyer pressing a tissue to my mouth, pretending it helped me breathe. "Do you know why you're here today?" the woman asked gently. My daughter nodded. "To talk about what Uncle Red did." Her voice was steady, too steady. Like it wasn't the first time she'd said it, just the first time someone was finally listening. The interviewer didn't react. She just asked, "Can you tell me what happened?" My daughter hesitated, looked down, fiddled with her fingers, then said, "He touched me where Mommy said no one should." A pause. The camera kept blinking. The room went colder, or maybe that was just my spine finally understanding what it meant to hear truth from your own child's mouth. She continued, talked about the games, the whispers, how he gave her candy afterward and told her it was their little secret. She never cried, not once, but her hands never stopped twisting in her lap. When it was over, the interviewer handed her a sticker and told her she was brave. She smiled, a small one, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes but means, "Thank you for not calling me a liar." The detectives didn't speak for a long time. One of them leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "It's enough," he said. "This will open a full investigation." I nodded. Didn't thank them. Didn't collapse. Just inhaled deeply as if for the first time in months, I could finally fill my lungs. We drove home in silence. My daughter looked out the window the whole time, clutching her stuffed rabbit like armor. Before we pulled into the driveway, she asked, "Is he going to come back?" I turned off the car, looked at her in the mirror. "No, baby, he won't come near you again." She nodded. Then softly, "Can I draw something now?" That night, she drew a new picture. There was a house, a son, a tree, 3 people, a mother, a daughter, and a man this time outside the fence. There was no trial. He took a deal. He wouldn't admit guilt, but he wouldn't be allowed near children again. He lost his job, his pension, his reputation. And the family, well, they didn't lose him. They chose him over her, over me, over truth. We moved, not far, just enough. A different school, a new address, a smaller Thanksgiving table where no one says, "Don't bring that up." I don't speak to my mother anymore. She sent one letter, said she missed us, said she hoped things could go back to normal. I folded it once, twice, dropped it in the trash. There's no going back to normal when normal meant looking away. My daughter sleeps through the night now. She keeps the light on. Sometimes she still flinches at certain words, but she laughs more. Real laughs. The kind that echo. She's learning to trust her voice. She's learning that her drawings don't have to protect her anymore. They can be messy, joyful, covered in glitter. She's learning that her truth doesn't make her too heavy to love. As for me, I stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped needing anyone to agree. I chose my child. I chose the hard road. I chose not to carry the shame of another man's hands ever again. And I am not sorry. We broke the pattern. We started a new one, built on clarity boundaries. Warm pancakes on Saturdays. No forced hugs. No secrets. Just two people who survived and stayed soft anyway.